my observation is that social norms favoring monogamy are essentially a human universal. And the reason for that is that we've learned through painful experience that social conventions favoring monogamy are the best way to reduce male violence, provide a secure environment for children, and help women find partners to help them with the difficult process of reproduction and child rearing. And that's, the woman who wrote that article knew perfectly well that when I used the term enforced monogamy, and we only discussed this for probably 2 minutes out of an interview that lasted 2 days, she knew perfectly well that I meant social convention. But it was in her interest to find a phrase that could be misinterpreted so that what I was speaking about could be misinterpreted. So here's what enforced monogamy means. So let's say my son is planning to get married in the fall, and I am happy about his fiancée. We seem to get along quite well. They seem to do quite well together. And so I'm pleased that they've made the decision to start their life together. So now imagine that he comes to me in a year and he says, I've got some news for you, Dad. I've been married for a whole year and I've managed to have 3 affairs during that time and not get caught. And what am I supposed to do about that? Hey, I put my arm around him and say, good work, kid, way to be. It's like, no. First of all, if he did that, he wouldn't tell me. And second, if he did tell me, which I can't imagine, I would ask him just what the hell did he think he was doing? That was no way to conduct himself. And it would be something I would regard as contemptible. Not only the affairs, but the deceit that goes along with it, and the violation of his vows, and the breaking of the harmonious relationship that he decided voluntarily to establish, and the weakening of the family structure, and the trouble that he put everyone through to attend the marriage ceremony in good faith, and all of that. Well, that's enforced monogamy, for God's sake. It's the assumption of the responsibility on the part of people who enter a relationship with some expectation of permanence to uphold the promise that they make when they do that. And she knew that bloody perfectly well. And so it's so idiotic, it's almost impossible to believe. You know, first of all, if you're going to accuse someone of something, you should at least accuse them of something that's plausible. It's like, well, there isn't anybody who goes around thinking that monogamy should be enforced at the point of a gun. You know, maybe the odd ISIS wingnut does that, thinks that. But no, there isn't anyone who thinks that, including me. And she knew that perfectly well. And so if that's the best that those who regard themselves as my enemies on the left can manage as a character slur, then, well, you know, have at her, boys and girls. It's pretty bloody pathetic as far as I'm concerned. So, I'll tell you one more thing about that. Here's something interesting. I detailed this out in 12 Rules for Life. I don't have the figures exactly right because I haven't got them memorized. But, you know, over the last 20 years, the desire for marriage has increased among young women, and by a substantial margin. I think it's 35%, something like that. At the same time, it's decreased among men by about 17%. It's like, so why am I telling you that? It's like, well, are we so blind that we don't realize what most people want? Like, most people who aren't cynical dream that they'll find a monogamous partner. And you think, well, what's the evidence for that? Well, first of all, there's evidence for that because all you have to do is ask people, and the majority of them tell you that. But there's way more evidence than that. It's like, what do? You take your date to a romantic comedy. And what's the structure of the romantic comedy? Man lies to partner and has multiple affairs. And you go away from that romantic comedy and you think, that was fun, let's do that. It's like, that isn't what happens. Is you go to a romantic comedy together and you see a couple who are attracted and repulsed across the dynamics of the movie, and they overcome a bunch of obstacles and they decide to live happily ever after. And that's the romantic comedy. And it's like a surefire success if it's reasonably handled, because it reflects what people want. And the reason it reflects that is because basically, although not without exception, human beings are monogamous. We tilt towards monogamy. That doesn't mean we can't be serially monogamous, and it doesn't mean that there aren't people who tend towards multiple partners. But it's not the dream, that's for sure. It's not what we enforce as social norms. It's not the universal human standard. It's not what makes for good people, individuals, or good intimate relationships, or solid families, or stable communities. And so, and I don't know how that can be contentious. How did that become contentious? What's the alternative? Like responsibility-less, impulsive sex. It's like, do it, man. Do it for 15 years. See how much fun it is. See where you end up. You'll certainly end up cynical. You'll definitely end up alone. And then what the hell are you going to do? What are you going to do when you're 45 and you don't have anyone? No, what are you going to do for the next 35 years? You don't have kids. You're not going to have grandchildren. You don't have someone to tangle your story together with. You don't have anything that lends solidity to your life. You've got no responsibility and so no self-respect. Well, if that's what you want, if that's what you're promoting as an alternative to enforced monogamy, it's like, have at her. It's your life. You'll see. That's my sense of it. So